Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone, and for those who I've already had the opportunity to meet with, thank you for your continued interest in XaTek. We first formed XaTek in early 2017 with the mission to solve the diagnostic dilemma for one of the most complex processes in the human body, that is coagulation. Existing coagulation assays require labile reagents, or they're complex devices with moving parts or dated technology. This results in them having to live in the central laboratory setting or only having very narrow specific indications. This clinical scenario that I just described is the opportunity that affords XaTek the industry-wide disruption that we refer to as ClotChip and that the FDA now refers to as breakthrough. Let's hope I get this right. Great. So there's two main dilemmas here in coagulation, right? There is no universal point-of-care diagnostic available today to assess global hemostasis. Yet there are numerous clinical scenarios with no available diagnostic tool. It's these two circumstances which affords us the opportunity to meet unmet urgent clinical needs in a variety of areas of medicine. And XaTek has several programs focused on several of those. Specifically, within the direct oral anticoagulants, those are DOACs. You often hear them referred to by their trade names, Xarelto, Eliquis. We've done hundreds of patients on a clinical level in that category. That's a massive market in itself. We also have studied hundreds of patients in the inherited disease bleeding disorders, more specifically hemophilia. That's a small market in terms of number of patients, but massive market in terms of dollars spent to care for those patients. We have an ongoing program with the U.S. Navy, completely funded by the DoD, to take our current commercial-ready device, ruggedize that into a format that will be suitable for in-field use. That can translate to civilian use in the form of EMT transport and life flight. We've taken strides to show superiority over existing coagulation tests as a pre-surgical screen, and we've got an ongoing study that in COVID-19 patients. So with the acute inflammatory response, you end up with microclotting in these patients, and our device is perfect for monitoring and maintaining care for those patients. That study's ongoing at the University Hospitals of Cleveland. So let's just take a little look at the technology behind it. It is based on something called dielectric spectroscopy. In more discernible terms, that's measuring the electrical current as it passes through the coagulating blood, right? The impedance of that current, that creates a profile for each individual patient, creates a profile for each individual category, which we've been able to characterize. It's a fully electric technique, which means that it is conducive to being a point-of-care device, unlike adjacent technologies. It uses a single-use disposable cartridge, razor blade model, and requires only a small drop of whole capillary blood from a single finger stick. It's sensitive to the complete hemostatic process. It can discriminate between factor-based problems and platelet-based problems, so protein versus cellular, which is very important. And it's completely agnostic as to the cause of the bleeding disorder, which makes it available for every patient. So you're looking at images of our beta system that is production ready on a commercial scale. The first image is that of the reader. It has a touch screen scanner on board for patient ID and lot tracking. The docking station is used for battery recharge and Ethernet connection if you're in an area where Wi-Fi connectivity is unavailable. It's an image of our disposable smart sensor and then our quality control reagents. Little snapshot animation of a very early prototype just to depict how the sensor itself works. Single drop of capillary blood goes into the sensor through capillary action, moves over the sensing field, and that's where we're measuring the impedance and characterizing that coagulation process. If you look over on the right, that is a graphic image of the empirical data that is given out. That's made up of hundreds of data points. Essentially, the two primary points are the peak of permittivity, which is indicative of the protein process, the coagulation factor process. That's measuring the onset of clotting. And then the back end of that, the maximal decrease in that is indicative of the cellular process or platelet-driven process. Again, we've done hundreds of patients in the inherited disease mostly in hemophilia. This is all published data. Likewise, within the DOACs, the direct oral anticoagulants, again, Xarelto, Eliquis, and the like. We'll pause for a second here just to sort of recap the pearls that I threw at you there. So it is platform technology. It's a measure of the patient's hemostatic process at that time, at the bedside. It's sensitive to the entire condition of hemostasis and thrombosis. It is a true point-of-care device, and it provides real-time, clinically actionable data. No other existing assay can say that in its entirety. We've presented to our peers at both national and international conferences for the last 4 years running. So data is out there to review. We also have like 5 or 6 publications currently in print. We've achieved significant milestones since closing our Series A. Our Series A was a $9 million round that we closed in June of 2018. You can read the list of milestones and events that have been accomplished, but if we focus on this past year, we've completed our beta design that is now in validation. It's been verified. We were awarded breakthrough device designation, as you heard me allude to at the opening. We have an active contract with the US Navy that is fully supported by the DoD. And again, that's for the ruggedized version of our current device. And we are currently under technical due diligence with 2 major strategics. I'll talk about that in a bit. As far as our design and device development milestones, we've hit all of those in a timely fashion, even in the face of COVID and the supply chain logistic issues. We're going to be completing our validation process here in the next few months, submitting a 510(k) for clearance as a general global assay. The predicates will be those that live in the lab, not what we intend to actually bring to market, but as a stepping stone to our breakthrough designation study, which will begin Q1 of next year. That will be in the DOACs. That study is being managed by Duke University. Our PI is out of Duke, John Alexander, if any of you are familiar with the coagulation space. We've got a robust patent estate protecting this technology, 4 issued patents around both the underlying core technology as well as its specifics in the space of blood coagulation. We have 2 pending PCTs, which are now in national phase, and a couple of non-provisionals that are specific to indication. The management team leads a world-class group of scientists, engineers, and clinicians that manage and guide XaTek. I'll call special attention to the last 3 gentlemen on the slide there. They represent 3 of 9 members of a clinical strategy steering committee that are with the company. These folks are world-class key opinion leaders in the world of thrombosis and hemostasis, and those of you familiar with the space will recognize those 3 names for sure. And in conclusion here, again, first point of care device for global hemostasis, impacts virtually every discipline of medicine, multiple markets, each with billion-dollar TAMs in their own right, a classic durable consumable market which will lead to robust returns once we enter our commercial phase. We are currently under NDA with 7 global companies. 2 of them we're in technical due diligence with. We are wrapping up a very small, what I'll call a micro Series B round. The reason we chose a small amount here, it's all we need to get to the finished milestones, which are our first 2 clearances and then some runway. And we feel that's the opportunity to sit back and entertain what are potential licensing or acquisition agreements. Some of those negotiations we've already begun with those 2 strategics. So that's, in a nutshell, use of proceeds. I'm happy to go into details with anyone who would like to learn more about the XaTek opportunity. Thank you very much.